Don't chase followers. Become a leader. Lead by example, not applause. You've been waiting for people to notice you, clapping for attention, hoping for validation. But deep down, you're tired. Tired of performing. Tired of begging to be seen. Let me ask you something. What if the applause never comes? Would you still rise? Would you still lead? Because the world doesn't need another follower chasing noise. It needs a leader like you. I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever posted something, a video, a picture, an idea, and sat there refreshing, waiting for the likes, for the comments, for someone, anyone, to say, "Wow, you're amazing"? I've been there too. There was a time in my life when I was obsessed with being seen. I thought if I could just grow my audience, if I could just get one viral moment, then I'd finally feel valuable. But here's the raw truth I discovered the hard way. The more you chase applause, the more you forget your purpose. The more you beg for followers, the further you drift from leadership. See, real leaders, they don't perform. They build. They serve. They walk the path even when no one's watching. Let me tell you a story. There was a man I knew in my early days of building. Let's call him Jordan. Jordan had no followers. No one reposted his content. He wasn't flashy. He didn't trend. But every single morning at 5 a.m., he showed up at the gym. He brought his little notebook, tracked his sets, trained in silence, led by consistency, not by commentary. And slowly, people started noticing. Not because he asked them to, but because the world can't ignore someone who refuses to quit. One day, a young man approached Jordan and said, "You changed my life. I watched you for months. You didn't know me, but I saw how you moved, how you didn't quit. I started waking up early too, because of you." You see what happened there? That's leadership. It's not loud. It's not viral. It's not performative. It's a quiet fire that spreads one active example at a time. So here's my invitation to you. Stop waiting to be followed. Start walking like someone worth following. Stop seeking eyes. Start building vision. Because every second you spend trying to go viral is a second you're not going vital. Think about that. When you need to be validated before you take action, you become a slave to perception. But when you move with purpose, with principles, regardless of who's clapping, you step into power. Let me say that again. Power is not in being seen. Power is in being certain. I want you to imagine something. Imagine a world where you never posted another thing, never got another follower, never heard another round of applause. Would you still show up? Would you still wake up early? Would you still put in the work? If the answer is yes, congratulations. You're not a performer. You're a leader. And if the answer is no, don't beat yourself up. That's why we're here. Because this script, this moment, this conversation is your turning point. You've spent enough of your life chasing attention. Now it's time to earn respect. And respect doesn't come from flash. It comes from foundation. This journey we're about to take together is not about gaining followers. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need them. You'll learn how to lead by example, how to be disciplined when no one's watching, how to build character in silence, and how to find power in purpose, not popularity. We'll go deep. We'll talk about identity, integrity, influence, and what it means to live a life that matters, even if the crowd never shows up. Because here's what I believe with everything in me. When you stop chasing followers, you start attracting legacy. And that's what I want for you. Legacy. Chapter 1. The crowd is not your compass. Let me tell you something that changed the way I live forever. The crowd is not your compass. Because if you keep turning left every time they cheer, and turning right every time they boo, you will never, ever arrive at your destination. You'll just keep spinning and spinning until one day you wake up completely lost. Not because you didn't try, not because you didn't have potential, but because you let the noise guide you instead of your vision. And I get it. We all want to be liked. We all want to belong. We're human. We're wired for connection. But here's the brutal truth. The crowd will clap for things that don't matter. The crowd will cheer for shortcuts, trends, and empty promises. The crowd will cancel you today and copy you tomorrow. So if your compass is built on applause, you'll always be at the mercy of people who don't even know your name. You can't lead from that place. You can only survive. And you weren't born just to survive. You were born to lead, to walk with clarity, to think independently, to build something so strong it lasts longer than you. That's leadership. But leadership requires something most people run from: silence. You have to sit in the silence long enough to hear your own inner voice again. Not the voice of influencers, not the voice of comments, not the voice of critics. Your voice. Let me ask you right now, when was the last time you made a decision based purely on your values? Not on what was trending, not on what was profitable, not on what was popular, but on what was right for you? Pause for a second. Really think about that. Because if you've been chasing followers, if you've been posting, building, dressing, speaking just to be accepted, you've probably lost sight of your original direction. You've been spinning the compass toward the crowd instead of toward your calling. I remember when I first started building online, I was hungry and I was honest. I shared my truth, my failures, my pain, and people started following. But over time, the pressure crept in. I started filtering myself, watering down my message, posting what I thought people wanted instead of what they needed. And guess what? I lost myself. I had the numbers, but I had no peace. Until one day, I realized something simple, yet radical. If you're not true to your values, you're not leading. You're just performing. That was the moment I chose to reset, to delete the masks, to turn down the volume of the world, and turn up the voice inside, the one that whispers, keep going, even when no one claps, even when no one's watching, even when the algorithm buries you. That voice, that's your compass, that's your leadership. And here's what happens when you follow it. You stop needing permission. You stop needing applause. You stop needing to be liked, to feel valid, because you know who you are. And people can feel that. Authenticity is magnetic. Purpose is louder than volume. When you lead from that place, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing followers, and you start attracting respect. Not because you shouted louder, not because you posted more, but because your energy became rooted, certain, solid. And people crave that in a world full of noise. So how do you start? You slow down. You unplug from validation. You sit with the discomfort of being unseen. And you ask yourself this question: if no one ever follows me, will I still walk this path? That's the litmus test of leadership. Because if your answer is yes, if your purpose still burns without recognition, you're already a leader. And the world can't help but follow someone who walks with fire. Here's a metaphor for you. Imagine a lighthouse. It doesn't chase boats. It doesn't move around trying to be seen. It just stands, tall, still, certain. And because of that, it saves lives. It becomes a point of guidance, not by seeking attention, but by being rooted in its purpose. You are a lighthouse. But you can't be a lighthouse if you're trying to be a boat. You can't guide if you're drifting with the tide. Stand still. Shine. Even when no one thanks you. Even when no one reposts you. Even when your message only reaches one person. Because that one person might be the one who changes the world. So let me leave you with this reflection. Are you moving toward your calling or drifting toward the crowd? Are you being guided by purpose or pressured by applause? And most importantly, if no one ever follows you, will you still lead? Pause here. Close your eyes. Ask yourself that, and listen for the answer that comes in the quiet, because that is where your leadership begins. Chapter 2. Lead yourself first. You want to lead others? You want people to respect your voice, follow your vision, trust your steps? Then you have to lead yourself first, because no one follows the lost. No one trusts someone who doesn't trust themselves. No one is inspired by someone still begging for direction. Leadership is not a performance. It's not a title. It's not likes, shares, or even a stage. It starts in the mirror. It begins in the decisions you make when no one's watching. It's in how you speak to yourself when you fail. It's how you manage your time, your habits, your energy. You cannot guide others until you've learned how to guide your own thoughts. Let that sink in. You cannot lead the world until you can lead your own morning. Let me ask you something. How do you start your day? Do you begin with your phone? Do you wake up already behind, checking who liked your posts, what emails came in, what the world wants from you? Or do you wake up with intention? Because the first 5 minutes of your day, that's where self-leadership begins. The way you start your day becomes the way you live your life. I learned that the hard way. There was a season where I was waking up reactive, grabbing my phone, scrolling endlessly, diving into other people's lives before I even centered my own. And then I wondered why I felt lost, why I couldn't focus, why I didn't feel confident in my decisions. It's because I was being led instead of leading. I was letting the world dictate my energy, my emotions, my mind, before I had even decided who I wanted to be that day. That's not leadership. That's noise addiction. So I changed. I stopped checking my phone first thing. I started journaling, praying, reading, exercising, and something shifted. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually. I felt the power return to my soul. I started showing up differently. I wasn't looking for direction, I was giving it. I wasn't asking for opinions, I was walking in vision. You want to know what true leadership is? It's doing the right thing, even when you don't feel like it, especially when no one will applaud you for it. It's telling yourself the truth, not just the inspirational kind, but the ugly, uncomfortable kind. The truth that says, you've been procrastinating, you've been making excuses, you've been talking like a leader, but living like a follower. And instead of blaming the world, you change you. Because once you master that, you become dangerous in the best way possible. You become someone others watch, not because you're flashy, but because you're solid, disciplined, clear. Let's be real. Most people want the results of leadership without the responsibility of self-discipline. They want influence, but not integrity. They want followers, but don't follow through on their own promises. Don't be most people. Be the exception. Be the one who leads in the dark. So when the spotlight comes, it doesn't blind you. Be the one who trains in silence. So when the noise hits, it doesn't shake you. Because here's the truth. Self-leadership is your foundation. And without a foundation, anything you build will eventually collapse under pressure, under criticism, under fame. You want people to trust you? Then be someone who trusts their own routine. You want people to follow your words? Then make sure those words match your habits. The world is starving for alignment. And alignment begins when your private life becomes stronger than your public image. Let me give you a simple challenge. For the next 7 days, just 7, do this. Wake up at the same time every day. Don't check your phone for the first hour. Journal for 5 minutes. Move your body. Plan your day intentionally. And follow through on what you said you'd do. Sounds simple, right? But most won't do it. Because most aren't willing to lead themselves. But you're different. You're still here, listening. You're not just interested in motivation, you're ready for transformation. So prove it. Be your own leader before you ask anyone to follow you. And here's a question I want you to ask yourself every morning this week. If I were watching myself today, would I be proud to follow me? Because guess what? Someone is watching. Maybe it's your child. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's a friend who never told you how much you inspire them. Maybe it's your future self. And they're waiting for you to lead. Not just out there in the world, but in here where it matters most. Your mind, your character, your actions. That's the battleground. That's where leadership is born. So don't wait for the world to give you a microphone. Speak truth to yourself in the silence. Don't wait for a platform. Build one inside your discipline. Don't wait for applause. Applaud yourself every time you show up, especially when it's hard. Because real leaders They don't lead for the spotlight. They lead from the soul. Chapter 3. Respect is greater than attention. Let me ask you something that most people never stop to consider. Would you rather be noticed or respected? Because in today's world, we're surrounded by people who will do anything to be noticed, anything to trend, anything to get clicks, anything to go viral. But respect? That's different. Respect doesn't come from being loud. Respect comes from being real, from being disciplined, from being consistent when no one's clapping. You see, attention is rented. Respect is earned. Attention is addictive. Respect is transformative. Attention feeds your ego. Respect feeds your legacy. You can chase attention your whole life and still feel empty. But if you earn someone's respect, even just one person, you've left something eternal behind. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Chris. Chris wasn't flashy. He didn't talk much. He wasn't the one making the loudest noise in the room. But every day, Chris showed up. He handled his responsibilities. He mentored others without announcing it. He kept his word. And when things went wrong, he didn't point fingers. He took ownership. One day, a younger guy on the team asked him, "Chris, why don't you try to stand out more? You're so good at what you do. You could be a star." And Chris just smiled and said, "I'm not trying to be a star. I'm trying to be a standard." That hit me like a punch in the chest. Because when you become a standard, people measure excellence by how you operate. That's respect. And it lasts longer than applause. See, anyone can go viral for being outrageous. But it takes character to be respected for being dependable. In a world full of noise, silence becomes powerful. In a world full of performers, authenticity becomes rare. In a world full of manipulation, truth becomes priceless. And that's where you win. Not in the metrics, not in the likes, but in the quiet, knowing that your name carries weight, not just reach. Let me break this down even more. Attention is like lightning. It's bright, loud, but gone in a flash. Respect is like a mountain, quiet, grounded, but impossible to ignore. So if you had to choose, would you rather be lightning or a mountain? Think about the people you admire most, the ones who changed your life. Were they chasing attention, or were they so deeply in alignment, so rooted in truth, that their life whispered to you without saying a word? That's the kind of person I want you to become, the kind whose life is a message, not just their mouth. But how do you get there? How do you build respect when the world rewards popularity? Let me give you 4 powerful shifts to focus on starting today. 1. Keep your word, even when it's inconvenient. When you say you're going to do something, do it. No excuses, no delay, no justifying, because people are watching. And the fastest way to gain or lose respect is how consistent your actions are with your words. 2. Master your craft. Quietly. You don't have to post every win. You don't have to document every step. Just be excellent. Because real leaders don't scream for recognition, they command it through mastery. 3. Stay grounded when you're winning. Most people let success make them arrogant. But you? Stay humble. Let your achievements speak. Let your presence calm the room, not inflate it. That's how you build respect, not just from strangers, but from those closest to you. 4. Choose purpose over popularity. It might mean fewer views. It might mean less applause. But every time you choose to honor your purpose over the algorithm, you are planting seeds of trust that grow into forests of legacy. Now, I want to challenge you. I want you to write down a name, someone you deeply respect. And I want you to list why. What is it about them? Is it their character? Their consistency? Their discipline? Then ask yourself, am I becoming the kind of person I would respect? Because if not, it's time to adjust your aim. You don't have to be famous to be unforgettable. You don't have to be rich to be respected. You don't have to be loud to be loudly remembered. All you have to be is true to your word, to your work, to your walk. And when you are, respect will find you, even if attention never does. Let me say this one more time for your soul. The world will forget what you wore, It will forget what you posted, but it will never forget how you made people feel by the example you set. So lead with character, lead with humility, lead with quiet power, because followers fade, but respect echoes for eternity. Chapter 4. Stop broadcasting. Start becoming. We live in a world of broadcasting. Everyone's trying to show they're doing something. Instead of actually becoming someone, we post the workout. Before we commit to the routine, we tweet the mindset. Before we live the discipline, we show the plan, but rarely finish the mission. And here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Sometimes, the obsession with showing your progress is actually what's stopping your growth. Because every time you post for approval, you're asking the world to validate what you haven't even finished yet. You haven't mastered it. You haven't owned it. You haven't become it. But the performance, it feels good. It gives a temporary hit of identity until someone doesn't like it, until it doesn't get engagement, until you're forced to face the gap between who you say you are and who you actually are. That gap, that's where most people quit, because it's uncomfortable to admit you're not there yet. It's painful to accept that there's more work to do, but that pain, if you lean into it, becomes the path. The world is full of people pretending to be leaders, but the real ones, they don't need to announce their becoming. They embody it, in silence, in self-discipline, in the dark where transformation really happens. Let me tell you something raw and real. A few years ago, I was addicted to broadcasting my progress. Every little win, every milestone, I needed people to know, to clap, to validate, because deep down, I wasn't sure if I was actually growing or just playing the part. But then, I burned out. I hit a wall. I had built an image, but I hadn't built inner strength. And when the pressure came, the mask couldn't hold it. I had to start over, privately. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't performing for the timeline. I was training in the quiet. No updates, no likes, no applause, just the mirror and the work. And you know what happened? I became dangerous in the most beautiful way. Grounded, calm, focused, unshakable. Not because I was perfect, but because I had finally stopped broadcasting and started becoming. So now, I'm challenging you. What would happen if you stopped showing the world your intentions and started living your intentions in silence? What would happen if you stopped proving your potential and started walking in your purpose, no matter who's watching? Because the truth is, your becoming is not a performance. It's a private promise, a commitment you make with yourself in the dark when the crowd disappears. The spotlight doesn't make you a leader. The grind does. The part nobody sees. The reps no one counts. The sacrifice no one claps for. You want to know who the strongest people are? They're not the loudest. They're not the trendiest. They're not the ones posting 10 updates a day. They're the ones you didn't see coming. Because while the world was scrolling, they were becoming. In the gym, in their journals, in their routines, in their thoughts. They were building muscle, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And when they stepped out, they didn't announce power. They embodied it, and everyone felt it. So ask yourself this. Am I more obsessed with showing who I want to be, or with becoming who I was born to be? Because you can't do both. At some point, you have to choose silence over spotlight, substance over style, depth over display. Not forever, but long enough for the real change to take root. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a tree. It grows in silence. No applause, no likes, no audience. But day by day, inch by inch, it reaches deeper into the soil and higher toward the light. It doesn't brag about its roots. It just stands strong when the storm comes. That's becoming, and that's what I want for you. To become so strong in your character, so firm in your discipline, that no one questions if you're a leader. Because your life answers the question before your words do. So here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, resist the urge to broadcast your every move. Don't post the workout. Don't tweet the hustle. Don't announce the new goals. Just do the work. In silence. With respect. With discipline. And watch what happens. Watch how much clarity returns. Watch how much energy you reclaim. Watch how your voice deepens, your presence sharpens, your focus tightens. Because you weren't born to perform for strangers. You were born to lead in silence until your results make so much noise that the world has no choice but to listen. Reflection questions. Who are you trying to prove something to right now? Are you growing or are you performing growth? If no one could see your progress for the next year, would you still do the work? You're not here to impress. You're here to impact. So stop broadcasting and start becoming. Chapter 5. Influence without integrity is dangerous. Influence without integrity is dangerous. It's like giving a sword to a child. It looks powerful. It sounds impressive. But without wisdom, without discipline, it becomes destructive not only to others, but to the person holding it. And today, we're surrounded by people who have influence but no integrity. Millions of followers, massive platforms, loud voice. But when you look closely, the foundation is hollow. The message doesn't match the lifestyle. The public image doesn't match the private behavior. The charisma is strong, but the character is missing. And when you build on that, it always collapses. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, the truth always rises. And when it does, influence without integrity becomes a cautionary tale. Don't let that be you. You were not called to be a symbol. You were born to be a standard. You were not called to impress the world. You were called to impact it. But impact starts on the inside, not in your brand, not in your bio, not in your curated image, in your values, in your daily decisions, in your integrity when no one's looking. Let me be real with you. I've known people with massive audiences whose lives were falling apart behind the scenes. They had attention, they had influence, they had reach, but they couldn't sleep at night. Why? Because they abandoned integrity to maintain influence. And when that happens, the soul suffers. Because deep down, we know when we're lying to ourselves. We know when we're saying one thing and living another. And the pain of that misalignment, it rots you from the inside out. But integrity? Integrity is peace. It's that quiet knowing that what you say, what you post, what you teach is actually how you live, even if no one sees it, even if no one claps. Let me break it down even more. Influence is how far your voice travels. Integrity is how deep your voice goes. Influence makes people listen. Integrity makes people change. Influence gets you platforms. Integrity builds trust. And in the long run, trust will take you further than talent, trends, or algorithms. So how do you protect your integrity when the world is pulling you to be louder, faster, more viral? Here are 4 unshakable principles to live by. 1. Always choose truth over trend, even if it costs you views, even if it's not popular, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Because trends fade, but truth stands the test of time. 2. Practice in private what you preach in public. Don't just say the thing, live the thing. Let your character be your loudest statement. Make sure your actions confirm your message, not contradict it. 3. Don't monetize what you haven't mastered. This one is hard, I know, but don't sell healing if you're still bleeding. Don't teach discipline if you're still living in chaos. It's okay to be in process, but honor the process by walking it first, not skipping steps for applause. 4. Let your life be the proof. Before you teach, post, or guide, ask yourself, does my life prove this message? Am I living this truth or just borrowing it? Because when your life is the message, you don't need to sell it. People will feel it. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman I met at a conference. No fancy clothes, no viral videos, no big brand. But when she spoke, the room stopped breathing. There was something in her voice, a weight, a depth, a calm fire. She wasn't trying to impress. She wasn't trying to dominate. She was just real. And when I asked her how she got to that place, she said, I stopped trying to be known and started trying to be trusted. That sentence stayed with me because trust is rare and it doesn't come from talent. It comes from integrity, from showing up every day with the same values in the dark that you claim in the light. So let me ask you something raw. Are you trying to be trusted or just noticed? Are you building a message that will last or a brand that might break you? Because if you want real leadership, it has to be rooted in something deeper than content. It has to be built on character. Your influence can open doors, but only your integrity will keep them open. So the next time you're tempted to perform, to exaggerate, to fake the win, to say what's popular instead of what's true, pause it, breathe, and remember this: the world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more examples. And you can be one, but only if you choose integrity over image. Reflection questions. Where in your life are you tempted to perform instead of be real? Are your private routines aligned with your public values? What part of your message needs more living before it's shared? Let your life be the most powerful message you ever deliver. Because leadership without integrity is just noise. But when integrity leads the way, everything changes. Chapter 6. They don't need another guru. They need a guide. Let's get something straight. People don't need another guru. They don't need another person yelling advice from a stage, waving around success like a trophy, preaching perfection. They need a guide. Someone who's walked through the mud, who's felt the silence, who's faced their own demons and still showed up anyway. A guide doesn't speak above people. They speak with them. They don't lead from ego. They lead from experience. Because real leadership isn't about elevation. It's about connection. And that's where most people get it wrong. They think leadership means having all the answers. But real leaders, they've just asked better questions. They've been through the fire. And instead of hiding the scars, they use them to light the way for someone else. You want to know what makes someone unforgettable? It's not how much they know. It's how deeply they understand. Not because they read it in a book, but because they lived it. They failed. They fell. They doubted. They wrestled with their own limits. And still, they rose. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but consistently, quietly, with integrity, with intention, with a commitment to guide, not impress. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman I mentored a few years ago. She was smart, driven, hungry to make a difference, but she told me, "I don't feel qualified to lead anyone. I'm still figuring it out." And I looked at her and said something I want you to hear too. You don't need to have it all figured out to be a leader. You just need to be one step ahead and willing to reach back. That's what a guide does. They don't stand at the finish line shouting, "Hurry up!" They walk with you. They shine a light. They hold space. They speak life into your journey because they remember what it was like to be in the dark. And here's the wild truth. Most people don't follow perfection. They follow presence. They follow vulnerability, honesty, clarity, realness. Not the person with the biggest audience, but the one with the most authentic voice. So if you're thinking, "I'm not ready to lead, I'm not qualified, I'm still healing," let me tell you this. You are more ready than you think. Not because you're flawless, but because you're honest. Not because you've arrived, but because you've decided to walk, and that walk has power. You're not called to be a guru. You're called to be a guide. And guides don't show off. They show up every day. They lead by example. They live what they teach. They stay humble and stay close. Because influence without intimacy creates distance. But leadership with compassion creates trust. And trust is what changes lives. So how do you become a guide? Here are 3 powerful shifts. 1. Trade authority for authenticity. You don't need to be seen as the expert. You just need to be real. To speak from your scars, not your script. To lead with stories, not superiority. People don't want perfect. They want honest. 2. Focus on presence over performance. The most powerful thing you can give someone is your attention. Not your content, not your pitch, not your highlight reel. Your presence. Be the one who listens, who sees, who stays. Because presence builds trust, and trust opens hearts. 3. Remember the you from yesterday. Don't forget what it felt like to be lost, to be unsure, to feel like giving up. Speak to that version of you. Because someone out there is living your old story right now. And they don't need a star. They need a steady hand. Yours. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a mountain trail. The guru stands at the peak yelling, "Come on, why are you so slow?" But the guide, they climb back down, meet you where you are, and say, "I've been there. I know it hurts, but I promise it's worth it. Let's go together." That's the leader the world is starving for. Someone who doesn't use distance to feel important, but uses empathy to pull others forward. So let me ask you, are you performing leadership? Or living leadership? Are you preaching from the mountaintop? Or walking the valley with those still climbing? Because when you choose to guide instead of impress, everything shifts. You stop needing approval. You start becoming a bridge. You stop being afraid of your flaws and start using them as proof that healing is possible. You stop chasing praise and start creating transformation. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to be impressive, you become unforgettable. Because people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. And when you make them feel seen, you become a mirror, a map, a message. That's the power of a guide. And that's what the world needs. Not another guru, but you, walking with them, not above them. Reflection questions. Where are you trying to be impressive instead of being present? What parts of your story could guide someone else right now? Who needs your presence more than your performance? You don't have to be famous to be a guide. You just have to be real. So walk in your story and use it to light someone else's way. Chapter 7. Character over clout. Build what can't be taken. In a world chasing clout, I challenge you to chase character. Because clout can be given and taken away. But character? Character is built, earned, forged in silence. It's who you are when nobody's watching. When the likes stop coming. When the followers unfollow. When the attention shifts to someone louder, younger, flashier. Who are you then? That's what matters. Because the truth is, clout is a currency with no soul. It buys you eyeballs, but it won't buy you respect. It can make you trend, but it can't make you trusted. It can open a door, but it won't keep it open when the storm comes. Character will. Let me say that again, slow and clear. Character will keep you standing. When clout has left the room, let me tell you a story. There was a man named Elijah. Online, he had 1 million followers. He was charismatic, sharp, a powerhouse of content. He knew how to spark conversation. He knew how to dominate attention. But privately, he cut corners. He disrespected people behind the scenes. He said the right things, but didn't live them. And one day, someone leaked a private message. Then another. Then another. And in less than 24 hours, the image crumbled. The audience turned. The sponsorships pulled out. The clout disappeared. Because what he built was a castle of mirrors. It looked shiny, but it shattered the moment truth hit it. Now contrast that with a woman I know named Faith. She's not loud online. She doesn't post every day. But every room she enters, you feel her presence. She's built businesses quietly. She mentors without cameras. She treats janitors like executives and keeps her word like it's law. And when her name comes up, people don't say, "Oh yeah, she's famous." They say, "I trust her." That is legacy. And it comes from character, not clout. So if you're building your life, your brand, your identity, build what can't be taken. Build integrity. Build discipline. Build humility. Build consistency. Because these things, they survive scandals. They outlast trends. They echo in boardrooms, prayer rooms, living rooms, and behind closed doors. Character gets invited back when clout has been forgotten. So let me ask you, what are you building that lasts? Is your success dependent on the algorithm? On applause? En perception? Or is it built on something deeper? Here are 3 checks to see if you're chasing clout or building character. 1. Do you value reputation more than reality? If you spend more time curating how things look than how they are behind the scenes, you're feeding the image, not your integrity. And images break. 2. Do you keep promises you make to yourself? Character isn't just about how you treat others. It's how you treat you. If you constantly say, "I'll wake up early," or "I'll stick to this goal," and you never do, you're eroding your self-trust. And without self-trust, leadership becomes a performance. 3. Would you still do the work if no one knew about it? This one is brutal, but revealing. Would you still grind if the camera was off? Would you still create if no one shared it? Would you still lead if the title was gone? Because that is where character lives. And when you operate from that place, you stop being reactive. You become rooted. And when storms come, and they will come, you bend, but you don't break. Because you weren't built on approval. You were built on principle. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a tree with shallow roots. The wind hits it topples. Now imagine a tree with deep roots. Storm after storm, season after season, it stands. Quietly, firmly, unshaken. That's the difference between clout and character. Clout is in the branches. It's what people see. It's where the birds land. But character is the roots. Invisible, but essentiel. If the roots are gone, it doesn't matter how pretty the leaves are. It's only a matter of time before the whole thing falls. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, don't focus on being seen. Focus on being solid. Build routines. Build discipline. Keep your word. Say no to what doesn't align. Own your mistakes. Tell the truth. And then watch what happens. Watch how you start attracting the right people, the right opportunities, the right energy. Not because you were chasing clout, but because you became unshakable. The world is full of noise. Be an example. The world is full of performers. Be a pillar. And when your time comes, and people ask how you got where you are, you won't say, "I chased attention." You'll say, "I built character, and it carried me through." Reflection questions. Am I building roots, or just showing off the leaves? What parts of my life are built on perception instead of principle? What do I want to be remembered for, clout or character? They can take your spotlight. They can take your platform, but they can't take your character. So build that first, because what you build in character, no storm can destroy. Chapter 8. Leaders are learners, evolve, or expire. Let me tell you something that separates real leaders from loud followers. Leaders are learners, not just when it's trendy, not just when they're starting out, not just when they feel like it, every single day. They study, they reflect, they listen, they grow, because they understand the brutal truth most people avoid. If you don't evolve, you expire. It doesn't matter how much talent you have, how many followers you've gained, how respected your name used to be. If you stop learning, you stop leading. Period. Because this world moves fast. And leadership is not a destination, it's a discipline. You don't just earn the title once. You re-earn it every time you grow through discomfort. Every time you update your mindset. Every time you admit what you don't know and decide to learn anyway. But pride is what stops most people from leveling up. They say things like, "I already know this. I've heard that before. I've been doing this for years." But let me ask you something. If you already know it, why aren't you living it at your highest level yet? That gap between knowing and becoming, it's only closed by one thing: humble learning. See, ego is loud, but wisdom is curious. It doesn't assume. It asks. It doesn't perform. It prepares. Wisdom is what makes a leader unstoppable. Because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that keeps you sharp, grounded, alive. Let me tell you a personal story. There was a season in my life where I thought I had arrived. Business was booming. Content was thriving. People were asking me to speak, to teach, to lead. And slowly, I stopped learning. I stopped reading. I stopped listening. Why? Because I was being fed by admiration. And that admiration, it numbed me. Until one day, I got humbled. A younger colleague showed me something I didn't know. They pointed out a blind spot I couldn't see. They weren't disrespectful, they were just aware. And in that moment, I had two choices: protect my ego or expand my capacity. I chose to learn. And that decision, it reignited my fire. Because nothing wakes you up faster than realizing your current version is not your final one. And that's a gift. You can grow. You can get better. You can evolve beyond what you've been. But only if you remain a student. Always. Here are 3 qualities every leader-learner embodies. 1. Curiosity over certainty. You're never too wise to ask questions. You're never too experienced to explore new ways of thinking. The moment you stop being curious is the moment you stop leading. Stay teachable. 2. Feedback over flattery. It feels good when people praise you. But what grows you is feedback. Even the hard kind, especially the hard kind, welcome correction. It sharpens your voice, your decisions, your presence. 3. Evolution over ego. Growth doesn't feel good. It stretches you. It humbles you. It reveals what still needs healing. But that's where greatness is born. The people who win, they evolve when others cling to comfort. They adapt. They unlearn. They relearn. And they keep rising long after the crowd gets bored. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a river. It flows. It moves. It adjusts its course when obstacles appear. And because it moves, it stays alive. Now picture a pond that never changes. Stagnant. Still. Eventually, it grows toxic. Leadership is the same. You flow, or you rot. You adapt, or you fade. You evolve, or you expire. So here's my question to you. When's the last time you truly challenged yourself to grow? Not just consuming content for entertainment, but stretching your discipline, facing your blind spots, learning a new skill, reading a new perspective, getting around people who sharpen you, not flatter you. Because the truth is, you don't need more compliments. You need more corrections. That's where the gold is. That's where leaders are forged. Not in praise, but in pressure. Not in attention, but in adjustment. And when you commit to evolving, no matter how far you've come, you become a leader the world can depend on. Not just today, but long term. So here's your challenge. Find one area in your life where you've plateaued. And instead of avoiding it, confront it. Study it. Invest in it. Grow it. And then repeat. Over and over again. Because the secret to staying relevant is never assuming you've arrived. You haven't, and that's beautiful, because it means there's more strength in you, more wisdom, more growth, more levels, more impact, but you have to choose it. Every day, every morning, with every decision, learn, evolve, rise, because the leaders who last are the ones who never stop learning how to lead. Reflection questions. Where in your life have you stopped growing because you think you know enough? Who in your circle challenges you to level up, not just cheer you on? What's one uncomfortable lesson you've been avoiding? Leaders aren't made by applause. They're made by humility, by the daily choice to evolve or expire. Choose evolution. Choose growth. Choose to lead by learning. Chapter 9. Quiet confidence is louder than performance. You ever notice something? The loudest person in the room usually isn't the most powerful. The one constantly trying to prove themselves is often the one still unsure of who they really are. Because real power, real leadership, real confidence, it doesn't announce itself. It walks in quietly, with posture, with clarity, with peace. And the room shifts not because it was told to, but because the presence demanded respect without saying a word. That's quiet confidence. And in a world obsessed with noise, showing off and broadcasting every move, quiet confidence is revolutionary. It doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need a standing ovation to feel worthy. Because it already knows, I am enough with or without applause. Now let's be clear. Quiet confidence is not the same as silence. It's not passiveness. It's not hiding. It's depth. It's certainty. It's the peace that comes from knowing, not performing. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a season in my life where I talked a lot. I felt like I had to explain everything, prove my worth. Convince people of my value. And underneath it all, I was scared. Scared I wasn't good enough. Scared I'd be forgotten if I wasn't loud enough. But then I met someone who changed everything. They didn't talk much, but when they did, every word landed. Their presence was calm, grounded, certain. And one day I asked them, "How do you do it? How do you walk in so much confidence without needing to prove anything?" They smiled and said, "Because I've already proven it to myself." Boom! That hit me like a thunderclap. Because that's it. Quiet confidence comes from private victories, from the reps no one saw, from the tears no one wiped, from the hard conversations you had with yourself, the ones that shaped your soul. You don't have to post every win. You don't have to explain your greatness. Just become it. And that energy? That's louder than any performance could ever be. Let me give you an image. Imagine two people walk into a room. One walks in loud, talking fast, name-dropping, trying to be seen. The other walks in calm, present, observing, saying very little, but every move is intentional. Guess which one owns the room? The second one. Every time. Because when your confidence is real, you don't need to be the center of attention. You become the center of gravity. People are drawn to you, not because you shout, but because your silence speaks volumes. Now let me be real, quiet confidence isn't born overnight. It's earned. And here's how. 1. You keep promises to yourself. Every time you say, "I'll do this," and you follow through, you build inner trust. And that self-trust is the foundation of real confidence. 2. You stop seeking applause for your process. You don't need likes to validate your grind. You validate your grind by staying disciplined when no one's watching. 3. You learn to sit in rooms without needing to prove your worth. You observe. You listen. You own your space, not with volume, but with presence. 4. You forgive your past self and stop performing for redemption. Quiet confidence grows when you release the shame. When you realize you don't need to make up for who you were. You just need to walk boldly in who you're becoming. Let me say this loud for your soul. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to perform to be respected. You don't need to be loud to be heard. In fact, the more confident you become, the less explaining you'll do. Your life will speak. Your decisions will speak. Your energy will speak. And people will feel it. Let me tell you something else. Loud performers get attention. Quiet leaders change lives. Because attention fades. But presence lingers. It sits with people. It inspires without even trying. It creates space, not noise. So let me ask you, are you performing for attention or preparing your soul to be unshakable? Because one is temporary, the other is transformational. And when you commit to building real confidence, not from applause, but from alignment, everything changes. You'll stop rushing to be seen. You'll stop fearing criticism. You'll stop apologizing for being yourself because you've finally become someone you trust. And that's power. That's peace. That's quiet confidence. Reflection questions. Where in your life are you still trying to prove yourself to others? What would happen if you started validating your worth privately instead of publicly? What's one promise you can keep to yourself this week to build more inner trust? You don't need to shout to be strong. You don't need to be flashy to be a force. Your peace, your presence, your patience will speak louder than your performance ever could. So walk into the room quietly and own it completely. Chapter 10. Lead by example, not emotion. Here's a hard truth. If your emotions lead you, your results will betray you. Because emotions are temporary, but leadership requires consistency. Now don't get me wrong. Emotions are real. They are valid. They are powerful signals. But they are not commands. They are not your GPS. They are not your boss. And if you let your emotions sit in the driver's seat, they'll crash your momentum every time. See, leadership isn't about how you feel. It's about what you do, regardless of how you feel. That's what separates those who build legacies from those who stay stuck in cycles. You must become someone who leads by example, not by emotion. Because if people only see you show up when you're motivated, they'll never trust your discipline. If your mood determines your message, your leadership becomes unpredictable. And here's the thing, people don't follow moods. They follow models. So let me ask you, what are you modeling? Do you model strength only when you feel strong? Do you model truth only when it's convenient? Do you model consistency only when it's easy? Or do you show up even when you're tired? Do you still serve when you're frustrated? Do you still lead with integrity when no one's clapping? That's the kind of leadership that earns trust. Let me tell you a story. There was a young leader I was mentoring, we'll call him Mason. Brilliant guy, big heart, tons of energy. But every time something didn't go his way, he'd spiral. He'd disappear, cancel meetings, lose confidence, snap at people. And finally, I sat him down and said, "You can't lead people if your emotions keep leading you." He looked at me and said, "But I'm just being real." And I said, "Real doesn't mean reactive. Réellement responsable." Boom. Because being real isn't an excuse to lose control. Being real is about owning how you feel, but choosing how you respond. That's maturity. That's leadership. It's not about pretending you're always okay. It's about making values-based decisions, not emotion-based reactions. Because guess what? You will have bad days. You will feel overwhelmed. You will be misunderstood, unseen, unappreciated. But if you only show up at 100%, you'll only show up 10% of the time. You can't afford that. You're building something bigger than your mood. You're building trust. You're building legacy. You're building influence not in the form of followers, but in the form of faithfulness. So how do you lead by example when your emotions are all over the place? Here are 3 key principles. 1. Create non-negotiable standards. Decide in advance what you will always do no matter how you feel. Maybe it's your morning routine, your journaling, your workout, your business tasks, your spiritual practice. Whatever it is, lock it in. Because when your values are fixed, your feelings won't derail you. 2. Process privately. Lead publicly. Yes, you can be vulnerable. Yes, you can be honest. But the processing of pain, fear, or anger, that's best done in private. Journal. Pray. Talk to a mentor. Then lead from a place of reflection, not reaction. 3. Anchor to purpose, not pressure. Pressure screams, "React now." Purpose whispers, "Remember why you started." Every time you feel like quitting, anchor back to the mission, the people you're called to serve, the legacy you want to leave, the future version of yourself that's depending on you not to break. Here's a metaphor. Emotions are like the weather. They change often without warning. One moment it's sunny, the next it's a storm. But leadership? Leadership is the lighthouse. It stands still, guiding, unshaken, reliable. Whether it's clear skies or thunderclouds, it leads. Because that's what the people around you need. Not a leader who feels good, but a leader who does good, even when they don't feel like it. Let me say something else, and I want you to hear this deeply. Discipline is louder than emotion. Consistency is louder than charisma. And example is louder than explanation. You don't need to tell people what you believe. Just live it. They'll see. They'll feel it. They'll follow it. Because example is the most honest form of leadership. It's not filtered. It's not rehearsed. It's not dependent on your mood. It's built in your decisions. And those decisions, they shape your influence far more than your words ever will. So here's your challenge. This week, when the emotion comes, pause, don't react. Ask yourself, what would the example version of me do right now? Not the emotional version, the leader version. Then do that even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's quiet, even if no one sees it, because that's the seed of leadership. And one day, those quiet choices will bloom into a presence so powerful, you won't need to explain a thing. Reflection questions. Where in your life are emotions leading your decisions right now? What's one area where you can replace emotion-based reactions with value-based choices? If someone followed your example for 30 days, what would their life look like? Lead by example, not by mood, not by impulse, not by ego. Lead like the lighthouse, still, grounded, unshakable, and let your actions speak louder than your emotions ever could. Chapter 11. When no one claps, keep building anyway. There will be days when no one claps for you. No one sees the work. No one acknowledges your effort. No one reposts, comments, congratulates, or even cares. And when that silence comes, that's the moment that separates the real ones from the performers. That's the moment where leaders are made. Because anyone can keep going when the spotlight's on them. Anyone can grind when the world is watching. Anyone can look disciplined when there's applause waiting. But what about when it's quiet? What about when it feels like you're pouring your soul into something that no one values? What about when you're building in the dark? That's where legacy lives. Because legacy doesn't ask, "Are they clapping for me?" It asks, "Am I doing what I was born to do?" Let me tell you something personal. There was a point in my life when I almost quit. I had been putting in work, showing up every day, creating, serving, giving everything I had. And the views? Low. The engagement? Quiet. The feedback? Crickets. And I started hearing that voice. You know the one. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're wasting your time. Maybe no one cares. But here's what saved me. I realized I'm not doing this for claps. I'm doing this for impact. And impact often starts invisible. The seed you plant today in the dark might not bloom until years later. But that doesn't mean it's not growing. Just because no one sees it doesn't mean it's not working. Think about a farmer. They don't get applause when they plant the seed. They don't go viral for watering the soil. They don't get a standing ovation when they show up day after day, nurturing growth that hasn't even broken through yet. But they still show up because they know harvest never comes to the lazy. It only comes to the faithful. So when no one claps, clap for yourself. When no one says, "Good job," whisper it to your own soul. Because every brick you lay in silence will become a foundation that noise can never shake. Here's something else. If you always need applause to keep going, you'll never last. Because applause fades, people get distracted. Audiences move on. But purpose? Purpose stays. Purpose is internal. It's eternal. And it doesn't require an audience-only alignment. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a sculptor working on a statue in a dark room. No gallery. No camera. Just the stone, the chisel, and the vision. Day after day, they chip away. No recognition. No crowd. Just them and the work. Until one day, the curtain opens. And the world finally sees what they've been building all along. And they say, "Where did this come from?" But the sculptor knows. It came from the dark. It came from the days no one saw. It came from the silence, not the stage. That's where greatness lives. So if you're in that season now, if you're doing the work and wondering if it even matters, let me tell you, it matters more than you know. Because you're not just building a project. You're building you. You're building resilience, patience, character, depth. And those things, they can't be built in the spotlight. They require solitude, stillness, silence. That's where real leaders are born. So here's your reminder. Keep writing the book, even if no one reads the first draft. Keep recording the podcast, even if no one listens yet. Keep building the business, even if no one believes in it. Keep showing up to the gym, even if no one compliments your progress. Keep healing, even if no one claps for your growth. Because this journey, it's not about being celebrated. It's about being committed. And one day, maybe months from now, maybe years, someone's going to look at you and say, "I wish I had your strength. I wish I had your consistency. I wish I had your discipline." And you'll smile because you'll know the truth. This didn't come from applause. It came from days no one clapped and I showed up anyway. Reflection questions. Where in your life are you waiting for applause before taking action? What have you been building that no one sees but still matters? If no one ever noticed, would you still keep going? Let your purpose be louder than your pain. Let your vision be deeper than their validation. And let your daily discipline become your loudest round of applause. Because if you can lead in silence, you can lead anywhere. Chapter 12. Your legacy will not be measured in likes. One day, they're going to scroll past your posts. They're going to forget your captions. They're going to move on to the next trend, the next voice, the next face. And when that day comes, you'll realize something powerful. Your legacy was never about the likes. Not the likes on your pictures, Not the views on your videos, not the shares, the comments, or the digital applause. Those things? They're metrics, not meaning. They're data, not destiny. Because legacy isn't about what people tap on a screen. It's about what they carry in their soul after they encounter you. That moment you spoke truth into someone's doubt. That time you showed up when everyone else disappeared. That quiet example you set when no one was watching. That's legacy. And it lasts longer than any algorithm. See, we've been conditioned to equate worth with visibility. If people see me, I matter. If I'm trending, I'm winning. If I'm liked, I'm enough. But here's the truth. Being liked is easy. Being remembered for the right reasons, that's hard. Being liked means you're agreeable. Being respected means you stood for something. Being liked means you said what was popular. Being remembered means you lived what was true. So let me ask you this. What are you really building? A following? Or a foundation? A viral moment? Or a timeless message? Because your legacy will not be measured in followers. It will be measured in fruit, in the people you lifted, the hearts you healed, the seeds you planted, the generations you inspired. And most of that won't be visible on a screen. It won't show up in likes. It'll show up in stories told years from now. Let me give you an example. There's a teacher who never went viral, never had a podcast, never built a brand. But every student who sat in her class walked away changed. She believed in them, pushed them, called out their greatness. And decades later, those same students became leaders, mothers, fathers, entrepreneurs, mentors. And they say her name with reverence. Not because she was popular, but because she was present. She didn't chase fame. She created impact. That's legacy. Now, think about your own life. Who shaped you the most? Was it a celebrity? An influencer? Or was it someone who looked you in the eye and said, I see you. You're worth it. Don't quit. The people who change us rarely go viral, but their impact goes eternal. And that's the kind of leader you're called to be. Not someone who's famous, but someone who's faithful. Let me give you a metaphor. Likes are like fireworks. They're loud, bright, but gone in seconds. Legacy is like a lighthouse. It may not get celebrated every day, but it saves lives, quietly, consistently. So choose which one you're building. Because here's the danger. If you spend your whole life chasing likes, you might wake up one day, unknown to yourself, popular but hollow, visible but invisible to the people who truly needed you, seen by many, but not felt by any. But if you spend your life rooted in purpose, you may not always trend, but you'll transform. You may not always be liked, but you'll be followed in the ways that actually matter. Because here's the crazy paradox. When you stop chasing likes, you become someone people truly like, not for your posts, but for your presence. And presence? That's what creates legacy. So let me challenge you. For the next 30 days, create without caring who claps. Show up when no one says thank you. Choose truth over trending. Say something real even if it costs you followers. Build something that might not get attention now, but will still matter 50 years from now. Because one day, someone will stand at your funeral, and they won't talk about how many likes you got. They'll talk about how you made them feel, what you helped them become, what you showed them was possible. And if that's what they remember, you didn't just lead, you lived well. Reflection questions. Are you building content that gets liked, or a life that gets remembered? What story do you want people to tell when they say your name? What would shift in your decisions today if legacy, not likes, was the goal? You are not here to be liked. You are here to lead, to love deeply, to serve honestly, to build eternally. So stop performing for clicks. Start preparing for impact. Because your legacy, it will not be measured in likes. It will be measured in lives. Chapter 13. Walk like a leader before anyone calls you one. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a certificate. You don't need permission. You don't need followers. You just need a decision. A decision to start walking like a leader before anyone ever calls you one. That's how true leadership begins. Not with applause, not with a microphone, not with a viral moment, but with a choice. A quiet, bold, invisible choice that says, I'm going to live with integrity. I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to walk in purpose even if no one notices. Because leadership isn't about recognition. It's about responsibility. It's showing up every day, in the dark, in the silence, in the struggle, and still choosing to walk like the person you intend to become. Let me tell you something that changed my life. The day I stopped waiting to feel like a leader and started moving like one, everything shifted. My confidence grew, my clarity sharpened, my circle evolved, and opportunities started finding me not because I was chasing them, but because I became aligned with them. That's what happens when you walk in leadership before you're celebrated for it. The world starts to notice, but more importantly, you start to believe. See, the truth is, most people are waiting for someone to validate them, waiting for someone to call them influential, waiting for someone to say, you're ready. But let me tell you something powerful. No one is coming to crown you. You have to crown yourself first. You have to declare, I'm the one. I'm responsible. I'm capable. I'm ready. Even if I don't feel like it, I will walk in it anyway. That's the real shift. Because leaders are not built in spotlight moments. They're built in daily decisions. In how you wake up, in how you treat people, in how you handle stress, in how you respond to setbacks. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine walking through a fog. You can't see the destination. No one's cheering. No one's guiding you. But you keep taking steps, one after the other, with trust, with grit. And eventually, the fog lifts. And when it does, you look behind you and realize you were a leader all along. Not because of who followed, but because of how you walked. So let me ask you something real. How are you walking right now? Are you walking with discipline or with doubt? Are you walking with intention or with insecurity? Are you walking like someone who's waiting or someone who's already become? Because people can feel it. And more importantly, you can feel it. The moment you start walking like the leader you know you're called to be, everything around you begins to shift. Your relationships, your reputation, your results. Not because you're louder, but because you're rooted. Let me share a story. There was a young woman building a nonprofit. She had no team, no budget, no connections. But every morning, she dressed like a CEO. Every day, she spoke with purpose. Every night, she evaluated her progress. People laughed. Who does she think she is? But she didn't flinch. Because she knew, if I walk like a leader long enough, one day the world will catch up. And it did. Her organization grew. Her team formed. Donations poured in. And now, she's changing thousands of lives. Not because someone handed her a platform, but because she walked into it before it existed. And you can do the same, starting today. You don't need 1 million followers. You don't need a viral quote. You don't need a mentor's approval. You just need to lead yourself first. Because when you lead yourself well, eventually, people will follow. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. So here's your call to action. Start walking like the leader you haven't fully become yet. Dress like it. Think like it. Speak like it. Plan like it. Pray like it. Build like it. And do it all without waiting for applause. Because the world doesn't need another crowned performer. It needs you. Fully locked in, fully aligned, fully certain. Not because they told you you were a leader, but because you walked like one before they ever noticed. That's real leadership. That's what changes families. That's what transforms communities. That's what creates legacies. So stop waiting. Walk like it now. And let your footsteps write the story of someone who didn't chase titles, but embodied greatness, one quiet step at a time. Reflection questions. What would change in your life if you started acting like a leader today? What's one small habit you can build that aligns with the leader you want to become? Are you waiting for validation or walking in vision? Leadership doesn't begin when the crowd says you're ready. It begins the moment you decide to show up differently. So don't wait for them to call you a leader. Just lead. Final reflection. Don't chase followers. Become a leader. Take a deep breath with me. Let it in, let it out, and let this truth settle in your spirit. You were never meant to chase followers. You were meant to walk in leadership, to move in truth, to live with conviction, to build with discipline, to shine with substance. You've spent too many years shrinking, performing, waiting to be seen. But I hope this journey reminded you of something powerful. You don't need applause to be valuable. You don't need a crowd to walk with purpose. You don't need permission to lead your life with boldness. Because leadership doesn't start with titles or trophies. It starts with a decision. I will become the example, even if no one watches, even if no one claps, even if no one believes yet. I will. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous to doubt, to fear, to every limitation that's ever tried to hold you back. You are not a follower of trends. You are not a performer for likes. You are not a clone of the culture. You are a leader, a lighthouse, a blueprint, a standard. And the world needs you to walk in that identity now, not when it's convenient, not when it's comfortable, but now, because somebody is watching you. Somebody is looking to you for strength. Somebody's going to keep going because you didn't quit. Somebody's future will shift because you chose to walk in leadership before anyone gave you the title. And one day, they'll say, your name, not because you were popular, but because you were present, because you showed up, because you lived what you preached, because you refused to settle for a life of empty claps and temporary trends. You built a legacy, a life of character, a life of consistency, a life of quiet power. So here's your final challenge. Stop chasing noise. Start building weight. Stop measuring your progress by views. Start measuring it by integrity. Stop asking the world to see you. Start asking yourself to respect you. Because once you respect you, the world will follow your energy, not your marketing. And when they ask you how you became so grounded, so certain, so powerful, you'll smile and say, I stopped chasing followers and I became someone worth following. Let that be your story. Let that be your walk. And every time you're tempted to chase likes, fame, or fast applause, come back to this truth. Leaders don't beg for attention. They earn respect by example. You are a leader. Now walk like it. If this message stirred something in you, if you felt seen, challenged, or awakened, then this wasn't just a video, this was your turning point. So don't let this energy fade. Save this. Rewatch it. Share it with the future leader in your circle. Revisit this every time you feel discouraged or unseen. And if you want more messages like this powerful, raw, real conversations that pull you back into your purpose, then do this right now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss what's coming next. This isn't just content. This is your classroom, your mirror, your accountability partner, your daily reminder that greatness isn't given, it's chosen, earned, and lived. So let's walk this journey together. Keep building. Keep becoming, keep leading, even if no one claps, even if they never say thank you, even if you never get the credit, lead anyway, because that's what real leaders do. Don't chase followers, become a leader.